What's up, everybody? It's August 1st, beginning of a new month and a new you, right? Uh, let's try to make some money this month. Hopefully, we will see a correction this month or next month, and I can get my long-term targets out of the way, and then we can start moving higher for the rest of the year. Typically, August and September are red for the market. And I have a couple reasons to believe that is coming. It might not happen this first week, but I would say by the end of August and into September, we will be in a correction slash bear market for at least a month or so. And then probably around October, everything will get back to normal. First thing I want to talk about is something I've noticed this weekend looking at charts on finviz.com. A lot of these really cheap, I've noticed the same pattern in a lot of stocks. And so I want to look at cheap stocks that might pop this month and next month. And this is probably shares, but I don't know. We'll see what kind of options might be available as the month goes by. But first, I just want to remind everyone that bankrupt stocks are doing excellent this year. Bigger gains than most of the big cap stocks. So keep in mind stuff like GameStop, AMC. We tried that last week, but I would expect them to start going higher and break their downward trends, just like Dave & Buster's here when they filed bankruptcy and they just ripped. GME, obviously, we remember that. AMC still looks to go higher. This is a similar pattern to what we're going to look at today. It is a pop, and then sometimes it can just rip, or sometimes it can just go down and then take off, right? And that was the plan last weekend, was to hopefully would have had enough momentum to break this downward trend, and we could have made bank off of the meme stocks. We do have a double bottom here, and we're holding kind of this area as support. Get some of this stuff out of the way. Anyway, AMC still on watch. I don't know. I'm going to wait for it to break, I think. This candle looks like it's going to gap down tomorrow. If we get around 32.50, I'm going to buy calls. Or if we break the trend line, I'm going to buy calls. So that's my thought on AMC. And I want to show you this. So this pattern is the same across all these stocks. This pattern right here. Big pop, another retest of the top. And it can either break above this top here and just rip, or it might just chug back down for a couple weeks and then take off. So we need to keep these on watch for the next month or so. First one is BTBT. This one does have resistance in this area. However, I bet we would have enough momentum getting over, let's say 951. Can pop back up, and it can run pretty good. So this is the first one, BTBT. My next is CODX. Same pattern, or similar anyway. Now this one, this is the 200-day moving average. It's bounced twice now. This was obviously a sell point. So when it hits the 200 right here, it sold off a little bit. Right here, sold off, sold off, sold off. So over the 200, we can see all of these short sellers get stuck and they have to get out, and it'll rip up to this area again, 20 bucks. So I want to get wait for a break of the 200 MA. Hopefully we gap over it, and I'm going to talk about gaps today. But hopefully we can gap over 11 bucks, 11 bucks. If we gap over $11 and get in, and we'll ride it up to 20 bucks. AHPI, I believe they make ventilators, which is extremely sad. But again, we are objective traders, right? And we've got a similar pattern. This one I like better because it's holding the 200 as support now. So it broke above it. So I'd almost want to buy it if it comes back down to this area, 530 area. I would probably buy in, or just a break over this consolidation area again, um, about $7. So over 7 or around 525, 530. I want to get an AHPI and TLSA. Looks good. Not Tesla. TLSA. We tried the lotto the other day when Tesla was popping, but now we've got a pattern to work with. So we'll get in above. I don't know where we'll get in. We'll just watch that one. But we've got a nice double bottom here. Triple bottom, 1, 2, 3. So it can go higher and at least get back to this area, which is the 200. This one's probably going to be shares. You can get 250 calls, I suppose. But if we can gap above the 200 for some reason, like right here it did, gapped above it and ran. Here, it gapped below it and sold off. So keep that one on your watch list. I'm watching these because I think we're going to have a pretty big correction coming in August, September. And so short money is going to flow out of these cheap dead stocks, and they're going to get into large cap and try to short the market. Just like if you ever paid attention to GME, every time it popped, the SPY dipped, and GME rips, SPY dips. It's kind of the same this year. And I think it's going to happen with these little ones. So we'll keep these all on watch as SPY turns downward. Biotech is the most heaviest shorted sector of the market because all biotechs are pretty much junk anyway. So they just ride them down to about zero, wait for a market crash, and then get out. And then they move over to Apple and all the other ones. Real quick, I've got lawnmowers in the background, so I'm going to keep this short. First, I want to talk about MSFT. So now we're going to do what the shorts do, and we're going to short big cap. Microsoft, I'm not going to short Apple. I'm going to leave that one alone. But Microsoft, I'll short. So we've kind of had this this trend here. Where it's been going up and up. And we broke out, and then we broke back below it. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and get in short, make Friday our stop loss. That seems like it used to be support, and now it's resistance, this area right here. So 286.60-ish, 286.50 will be our stop loss. I will get in MSFT puts. First target will be 275, and then 260 was 265 or 263. 260 is our next target to swing it into. You want to get September 30, I think they have quarterly options next month. So August, your target is 274. September, your target's 260. Let's talk about SPY. So right here at 436 was an interesting point of resistance, and 438.26 was the high. 436 though, it was struggling to get around it, and it dropped hard, and then it came up to it, and instead of fighting it and going chopping around and then breaking it, they just gapped over it. So what gaps do is that's where market makers, they move the stocks to where they want it to be for the least amount of resistance. So they were trying to get it to go keep going higher. And they knew there's resistance here at 436 area. So instead of just chopping around and waiting, they just broke over it, right? Moderna was in this channel forever, and they didn't want to keep chopping around and correct again, so they just gapped over it. Facebook, we're going to look at today. So this is resistance right here at 357. It's been resistance, it's been resistance, it's been resistance. So they get back up to it and they're like, I don't want to fight this. I'm just going to gap over it. So they gap over the resistance, the market makers. They gap over it, and then it bounced off prior resistance. So now it's support, right? So gaps don't always have to fill. That wasn't the purpose of this, though. It's why gaps happen. Gaps happen because market makers want, and this is like not just like sell off after hours. This is like the actual gap that happens when the market is closed and that we cannot trade, right? So from like 8 to 3 in the morning or whatever, that's when this gap happens. So the reason this is important, though, is because if you break back below the market maker gap, then all these people who wanted to sell are going to try to panic sell because they don't think they're going to get filled anymore because it's going to go higher. So what they're going to do is panic sell, and it's going to come back down to 330. This area is support. It's held the stock pretty good. So what I would expect is, if you wanted to predict the future, we will sell off, break this trend, bounce here, go like this, and then gap down again, and just keep going. That's my prediction for the future. But anyway, Facebook short, we broke that, and now it is resistance again because it sold all the way back off to that point. So I would say under 356, no, 354. Let's get in puts and ride it back down. Our first target is 330. Our next target would be probably the 200. Will meet us right around 305. That'll be for September, maybe August, but get September puts for that. Facebook short, Microsoft short, Twitter, TWTR. I'm already short in this one, but we failed earnings. We failed the breakout here, and it came right back down. Now we've got topping tails here, which means sellers. So this is a area of resistance, and I would expect it just to continue its downward pattern back to the 200 MA around $60. So I think I'm in August 20, 65s with a target of 60. You could get 70 puts and make Friday's high your stop. Right now our stop is still up here, 72. Sorry, 72 is our stop for 65 puts. Twitter short, UPST. I've had a real hard time with this one. It was supposed to rip just like it did the last two times when it bounced here. This downtrend here was now turned into support and was supposed to bounce and go higher. I'm going to wait on this one because I think we have earnings on the 5th or the 6th. But what I would say, if you want to just day trade it, I think it's in the downward pattern. So, and this is a pretty ugly looking candle right here. If it gaps down and gaps to 116, then it's dead, and you want to probably buy calls and ride it back up. But if we gap below 116, then it can really tank. That one's on my watch list for earnings. I'll probably play that one short for earnings as a lotto and get somewhere like 100 or 80 puts on that one. We've got support around this area, around 88, 90, so maybe 90 puts. on that one. I also am in VNQ. This is a pretty ugly looking candle right here. I got it at 107.60. I got in 107 puts. But if we can break back under this trend line again and close below it, then I want to get back in probably 100 puts and hold those through the end of September, maybe October. We talked about this before, but it's got long time resistance and it's sitting right at that trend line. So I expect it to pull back, maybe not all the way back down to 87 or 90, but we'll get a good drop. At least it'll go back to 100. So we'll see. We'll see what it does. VNQ is valid short, and the stop loss will be 107.60 where I got in. Break even. Banks, I still want to short banks. XLF. It still looks good to go lower. We've got weekly topping tails here, which means this is a resistance area. And if we can break this prior pivot of 35.37, then we can drop all the way down to the 200 around 28. On the daily, I'll probably just get in 36 puts when we break it. I'm talking about a few calls too, but not many. Clearly you can see we've got this channel here. We gap down below it. The market makers were trying to gap below resistance, but it got pushed back up. So yeah, it's happened 3 times now. 1, 2, 3. The market makers want XLF to go lower. So let's just make our stop at the top of this 37 bucks. Get in 36 calls at the open on Monday and swing it down to 28, 30 bucks. C was also on our list. It's one of the weaker banks on the weekly. You can see it, so we can get a good drop down to 48. You can still get in C. However, we are fighting the 200 MA here, so maybe that's not a good idea. We'll leave that one alone. But once we gap below the 200, then definitely we'll get in. WFC is another bank that looks good to go lower. This is an area of resistance here. Anywhere around here is resistance. So let's say below Friday, 45.67 area. Let's get in 45 puts and write it down to 37. Banks are short, housing market's short, big cap. BTR was on my watch list. It looks like it wants to fall, but I wonder if it's getting squeezed also because it keeps popping. They're all red, but it keeps just trading in this range. So under the trend line, I would say go ahead and get back in, but I might leave that one alone for now. Technically, it's still valid. Get in under 59 bucks. And then we'll do some long calls, not many. We talked about DDD. I didn't trust it, so I didn't get in. It was a pretty good run. But I want to see, we put in a higher high, but we also put in a lower low. So I kind of want to see what this one does. So we're bouncing off the 200 here. Bounced pretty good. So this is clearly support. This area right here. There's buyers. This is where everybody wants to buy. So what I want to do is when we get back down to this area, if we get back down to this area, I want to buy it. Or if we get over this area, I want to buy it. So we can let it just chop around for a few days. But keep this one on your list long. Buy 25 calls if you get down to 24. Buy 30 calls if you get above 29. I'm still in Moderna. I'm going to hold it to 650 or so, maybe. Oh, it has earnings. Moderna has earnings on Thursday, So let's get out of it before that. It'll probably go higher, but I'm too heavy in it to risk it. So I'm just going to probably get out, maybe buy some 400 call just for a lotto. Again, it's extremely shorted right now. Not only was it shorted before because it's a biotech stock, now everybody and the mom wants to short it because they think it's going to crash. So it's not. It's not going to crash. RMBS is a new one that I've been watching. We've got a nice flat top here. The expectation would be to keep going. We've got a nice strong green candle. The sellers came in and the buyers took them completely out. So if we can get above $24 on RMBS, I'd look to get into calls there. We have an interesting pattern here. We just keep chopping up. We came back down, and now resistance is support. So the expectation would just keep going, 28, 29 bucks. RMBS long. And then I like Riot too. Riot looks good to reverse. Kind of want to see what it does next week before I get in. But I do like if we can break back above what used to be a trend line, then I'd like to get in that long. Because again, we have a double bottom at the 200, just like DDD. I've got a bunch of them that are lottos for the $19 challenge, but I'll just post those as they trigger. Pot stocks are the last one. Similar patterns. They have double bottoms here. Now, CRON is kind of weak because it's already under the 200, but we are starting to see volume come in, and those are going to be shorted as well. TLRY looks good to go higher. It's gapping up, so when it's above the 200, it can start taking off again. 1650. ACB looks good. It's got a multiple bottom now, double bottom on the weekly, and then multiple bottom on the daily. So if we can get above 750, it can start going back up. So pot stocks look good. RMBS, DDD, and then those first ones I talked about, biotechs, look like they're going to go higher. And then big caps look like they're going to go lower. AAPL kind of had a breakaway gap here, but it's just chopping. So, I mean, we've got kind of a area here. So if we get below this, really I'm not going to mess with this till we break 135 again. If we can break 135, then I'll get back in Apple short down to $85. But for right now, I'm just going to let it go. We'll see what it does. Send me a message if you got any questions. Last thing I want to talk about, which is pretty important about what the direction of the market will be for the next 2 months. UUP is the dollar, the US dollar. We've had a kind of a triple bottom here, and it can bounce higher. We got a bunch of jets flying over today. Let's see what war stocks are doing real quick. RTX. Yeah, probably going to go higher. Anyway, UUP is the US dollar. And if we put in a higher high on the US dollar, then we will probably be in a bear market. And the reason I say that is because when the dollar is cheap, meaning inflation is high, then other countries and other investors can buy the US dollar for cheap and then buy stocks. So as the US dollar crashes, SPY goes up. If the US dollar somehow turns around and puts in a higher high and a higher low, then that's going to confirm that we're going to be in a bear market. So what I expect is our inflation rate is just going to be too high, and we'll just, we just broke this trend line on Friday, or last week, I mean, and then it'll just keep going down. However, if we somehow put in a higher high on the US dollar, then stuff like gold is going to go down, and stocks are going to go down. And you want to buy stuff like bonds and the US UUP, and you want to short stocks. So we'll see. I'll set up an alarm on that. Let's say if we break this trend line here, this higher high, then it'll confirm that we are in a bear market for August and September. So we'll see. Just have fun this month, and hope you guys make a bunch of money. And we'll see you later.